the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Alt. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we will hear more selections from Caravan of Dreams by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. The Horseman in a Hurry. Once upon a time there was a man who was asleep and who swallowed a venomous creature, which stuck in his throat. He got up in a sort of delirium and started to cough and shake himself to try and get rid of the affliction, which he did not fully understand. At that moment a man on a horse, happening by, saw at a glance what had happened. He immediately raised his whip and started to beat the man black and blue, raining down upon him blows without mercy. The half-crazed patient tried to cry out to him to stop, but could not get the words out. As he ran or writhed on the ground or rolled over, he found that he was always sustaining a hail of pitiless blows. The horseman said not a word. Eventually, with a mighty heave, the poisonous animal was thrown up by the protesting stomach of the afflicted man. It fell to the ground and slithered away. The horseman, without a word, spurred his beast and rode away. Only then did the other man realize that what seemed to him an unjustified assault in his misery had, in fact, been the only way in which he could be rid of the creature before the venom were injected into his system. Much travel is needed before the raw man is ripened. Proverb. Class and nation. Different sections of the community are, to all realities, nations. Beware of people who ask you questions, when they already have opinions which they want to have confirmed, or by means of which they propose, unknowingly, to reject you and thus support their own conclusions. Association with such people is not only fruitless, it is the mark of an ignorant man. The clerics, doctors, literary men, nobles and peasants really could be called nations, for each one has its own customs and casts of thought. To imagine that they are just the same as you, simply because they live in the same country or speak the same language, is a feeling to be examined. All enlightened people eventually reject this assumption. Samarkandi. Patience is bitter, but bears a sweet fruit. Proverb. Be kind to the hawk and harm the sparrow. Proverb. Letters. The ordinary man writes a letter with little thought for the state of the person who reads it, and much regard for his own state. The thoughtful man writes a letter bearing in mind what he thinks will be the mind of the person who reads it. The learned man writes few letters, in case he cannot anticipate the state of the recipient. The Sufi writes no letter until he can know exactly what will be the state of mind in the man when he receives it. The adept writes any letter which has to be written. The Arif, or Gnostic, has no need of writing nor receiving letters. But such is the confusion of mankind that, if the Arif does not write, he will be thought very great or perhaps very heedless. The adept, writing a necessary letter, will be judged as if he was an emotionalist or propagandist. The Sufi, divining the state of mind of the recipient, will be thought to write unsuitable letters. The learned man will be thought, from his paucity of letters, to be more occupied in something else. The thoughtful man will not be able to communicate well, in case something he writes gives offence. The ordinary man writing all kinds of letters may have them collected and selected. If he writes enough, people will choose those which seem to them valuable. On the basis of these, he can be erroneously styled a saint. Shah Hassan. One day the cub will become a wolf, even if it has been reared among the sons of man. Proverb. The voice. The voice of the supreme leadership of higher knowledge is always there. It is not heard by ordinary people because their personal or group vanity makes them deaf. As a consequence, they say that it is not audible. Or worse, they listen to another voice or voices, which their vanity again makes them feel is the true one. There is so much that can feed personal vanity admixed with moral teachings commonly accepted as good or true ones, that even the most faithful followers of these are indulging their vanity just as surely as the trained or self-appointed critic is, in reality, exercising his vanity in his criticizing, not learning, teaching, nor contributing to anything. The voice always speaking is saying, "You cannot struggle against or avoid vanity until you know where it is operating." By displacement, people attach their vanity to institutions and try to make them endure long enough after they have any use. Muhammad Ali Shah. Better the demon which makes you improve than the angel who threatens. Proverb. The sort of man who, throwing a stone upon the ground, would miss. Proverb. The Four Men and the Interpreter. This allegory of Rumi's has been used since the 13th century to characterize both the different languages of men, their wanting the same thing and thinking it is different, and the four men who are said to battle within the hearts of every individual. It is from the Mathnavi, the couplets of inner meaning, which Rumi left behind, and which has been called the Quran in Persian. Four people were given a piece of money. The first was a Persian. He said, "I will buy with this some angor." The second was an Arab. He said, "No, because I want inab." Third was a Turk. He said, "I do not want inab, I want uksum." The fourth was a Greek. He said, "I want stafil." Because they did not know what lay behind the names of things, these four started to fight. They had information, but no knowledge. One man of wisdom present could have reconciled them all, saying, "I can fulfill the needs of all of you with one and the same piece of money. If you honestly give me your trust, your one coin will become as four, and four at odds will become as one united." Such a man would know that each in his own language wanted the same thing: grapes. Each flies with its own kind, pigeon with pigeon, hawk with hawk. Proverb. The Sultans and the Taxpayer. While legal redress of hurt to the mind is always hard to find, there is an anonymous way which many of the successful rulers in our time and in times of old practiced. It was carried out, and still is in some places, by the instruction of the men of wisdom who never appear in public, but whom the rulers heed. It is called the matter of pruning. Officials of every grade, shall we take tax collectors, are subject to no control save the rules and regulations and the need to appear satisfactory to immediate superiors. As a result, there are as many abuses of stupidity as of corruption. In any society, the corruption of the heart is as harmful as that of the pocket. Enlightened administrations employ people who visit these tax collectors and others, supposedly as taxpayers. If they are treated heartlessly or stupidly, they report this to the department whose concern is such matters, and the offenders are pruned. That is to say, they are sent to some place where their defects cannot harm others. There are many stories of this, how justice was meted out by Harun and his vizier, visiting people in disguise. Know, therefore, that Harun means the body of people dedicated to justice, and Harun and the vizier are the means in the healthy society whereby the pruning is carried out. Where there is no such pruning, the country is in a state of disaster, whether it knows it or not, and whether there is a public fuss to assuage the conscience or not. There must always be this pruning. Mohsin Ardebili. The Thief. A man of Merv, well known as the home of complicated thinkers, ran shouting one night through the city's streets. "Thief! Thief!" he cried. The people surrounded him, and when he was a little calmer, asked, "Where was the thief?" "In my house." "Did you see him?" "No." "Was anything missing?" "No." "How do you know there was a thief, then?" "I was lying in bed when I remembered that thieves break into houses without a sound and move very quietly. I could hear nothing, so I knew that there was a thief in the house, you fool." Niamat Khan. Know your measure. Proverb. What is their opinion in their cups, those who have said that wine is an abomination? Proverb. Seeing double. A father said to his double-seeing son, "Son, you see two instead of one." "How can that be?" the boy replied. "If I were, there would seem to be 4 moons up there in place of 2. Hakim Sanai of Ghazna. If you want to be a calligrapher, write and write and write. Proverb. The liar has a bad memory. Proverb. Why? A man said to a dervish, "Why do I not see you more often?" The dervish replied, "Because the words, 'Why have you not been to see me?' are sweeter to my ear than the words, 'Why have you come again?'" Mullah Jami. Tomorrow there will be apricots. Proverb. If the father cannot, the son will finish the task. Proverb. Yusuf, son of Hussein. Desiring to become a disciple, Yusuf sought out Dunun and acted as a servant to him for a year. After this period, Dunun asked, "What do you want of me?" Yusuf said, "Permission to serve for another year." After the 2nd year, Dunun said, "Ask something of me." Yusuf said, "Tell me the most great name." Dunun did not answer, and Yusuf continued as his servant. One day, Dunun handed Yusuf a dish covered with a cloth. He said, "Take this to the dervish who lives on the other side of this river. Do not remove the cloth under any circumstances." Yusuf said, "By my head and heart it shall be so." Danun said, "If it is so, the dervish will tell you the great name." But as he was crossing the river, he became curious as to what might be in the dish, and he untied the cloth. A rat leapt out, fell into the Nile, and was carried away. When he reached the place of the dervish, Yusuf gave him the bowl and said, "Tell me the great name." The dervish said, "You could not bear a rat in a bowl. Can you therefore protect the great name? You have failed your test." He returned to the master, very depressed in spirits. Danun sent him to his own country, saying, "In due course you will receive your initiation." It was 50 years before Yusuf, because of this and other heedlessnesses, attained discipline enough to learn and keep the great name. Attar. Why the dervish hides himself. Rumi was asked by his son, "Why is the dervish hidden? Is this a self-concealment done by means of clothing? Is there something within him which he disguises?" The master said, "It might be in any way. Some write love poems, and people think that they mean ordinary love. The calling sometimes conceals the real position in the way. There are traders, like Baba Farid. Some write literature. Others pursue other external activities. This may be done for defense against worldly people. Some deliberately act in a way which society might disapprove to gain peace. The Prophet has therefore said, 'God has hidden the men of greatest knowledge.' Any stratagem may be adopted by the followers of the way to gain peace when they might otherwise be hindered." The master then recited, "Ever knowing, as they hide, they seek. To the ordinary man they appear other than they are. In inward light they roam, making miracles come to pass, yet none knows who they are." Aflaki, Munakib el-Arifin. For every Pharaoh there is a Moses. Proverb. The Dog and the Dervishes. A party of dervishes, accompanied by some pupils, stopped on their journey to have a picnic. They spread a cloth by the roadside and put large stones on its corners, so that the wind would not disturb it. Noticing their preparations, a stray dog began to nose around. One of the disciples said, "We are going to have difficulty with that dog. Giving it scraps will only encourage it to wreck our meal." One of the dervishes replied, "Action is superior to intellection. Stop thinking that and continue to place stones on the corner of the cloth." The dog made the rounds of all the stones, sniffing them, and then he ran away barking. One of the dervishes, who was reputed to know the language of animals, said, "He is saying, 'If these people only put out stones for their own meal, what hope have I of scraps of real food from them?'" Your magic talisman is powerful, but are you a Solomon to make it work? Proverb. Be in the world, but not of the world. Proverb. The Prayer and the Curse of the Dervish. This tradition of the Naqshbandi order is from the venerated manuscript Asrar-i Khajagan, Secrets of the Masters, where it is attributed to the Sheikh Munawwar Shah, who died in 1848. His shrine is at Lahore. The tale echoes the tradition that certain people, especially Sufis of a certain rank and some descendants of Muhammad, may curse a person in order to give him a blessing. Man, because of his selfishness, does not know that prayer often goes by contraries. There was once a dervish whose vocation was powerful, though he suffered from lapses of aspiration. Sometimes he wished for things for himself which he did not deserve. One day he was climbing a steep hill, and because he was tired, he prayed that he might have help in the effort. Immediately, as from nowhere, a man appeared and forced the dervish to take him on his back. It happened that a woman was coming down the hill at the same time with a child in her arms. Seeing a venerable figure, himself almost unable to make the ascent, performing what she took to be such a self-sacrificing act as to carry a companion on his back, she stopped to ask a favour. "O dervish, bless this child of mine." Remembering this time the working of contraries, the dervish called out, "May the child be cursed," whereupon the unhappy woman burst into tears. And even the villain whom the dervish was carrying was so incensed by this seeming heartlessness that he beat him soundly and went on his way alone. This podcast is copyright 2016, the Idries Shah Foundation.